Maserati. They're one of the oldest, grandest car makers in the business. From the silver screen to the world's greatest racetracks, they've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. Thing is though, that only counts for so much in today's market, because what every luxury car maker actually needs is a show-stopping SUV that'll bring in the big bucks and the big orders. So here it is. Welcome to the Maserati Grecale. It's a mid-sized SUV that's designed to rival the likes of the Porsche Macan, Alfa Romeo Stelvio and Mercedes-Benz GLC.
And if you're wondering why you should care, then just think of it like this. For Maserati to keep building wonderful, gorgeous sports and supercars like the Gran Turismo and MC20, the Grecale needs to sell.
And just in case that doesn't pique your interest enough, then the Trofeo version of this car, which I happen to be driving now, has the same 3-litre V6 Nettuno engine as is used in the MC20. It's a slightly lower rate of tune, but it still means 523 brake horsepower, 457 pounds-foot of torque, a 0 to 62 mile an hour time of 3.8 seconds, and 0 to 125 miles an hour in 13.8.
That's enough to match the aforementioned Stelvio Quadrifoglio and AMG GLC 63S, and better the Macan GTS for outright pace. Late to the SUV party it might be, but nobody can accuse Maserati of skimping on the firepower.
And here's the interesting thing, in the MC20, which I've done a lot of miles in this year, I liked the Nettuno engine, but I wasn't entirely sold on how it fitted in with a Maserati supercar, which tends to have, I don't know, it feels like it should have a peakier, more sonorous sounding engine, not big turbo whistles and brawny torque figures. But in a big SUV, I don't know, I think that fits in perfectly. So, in theory, this engine should work really well. And you know what? I think it does. It's not as turbo-y feeling or whooshy or responsive as it is in the MC20, but it sounds good. It's got really long legs, so you can accelerate hard in almost any gear. And also, as I said, it's blindingly quick. So if we're ticking the boxes of performance SUV engine, it fits in really well. I'm a big fan. The gearbox, it isn't as quick as Porsche's PDK unit, and it is pretty infuriating with these buttons down here instead of an actual gear lever, because they're not that responsive. Once you get going in GT or comfort mode, it sloshes through the changes well enough, but on a road like this, on a really twisty Italian road, yeah, you want a little bit more response from the paddles. There's just a small delay. As for handling, well, I think the main takeaway for me is that it's good fun. You can detect a hint of body roll regardless of which of the drive modes you put it in, but it turns in keenly, it's got plenty of grip at the front, it feels like it wants to be driven quite hard, which sometimes in performance SUVs you don't get that, they feel a bit reluctant. But this isn't doing that at all. The steering's of a nice weight, it's got enough feel for a car like this, it's quick enough, and the damping as well, when you're going quickly, it doesn't feel like it's just pummeling the road into submission, it does actually work with it. Also, the brake pedal is nice, it's got feel in it. The brakes are steel, yet they're resisting fade very well. Didn't really feel any of that today. And while this is undoubtedly still a heavy car, it does a really good job of actually feeling like, you know, it's on your side. It's not suddenly going to do something really unexpected. If you go into a corner a little bit hot, you can back out of it. It's not going to understeer wide with all that mass pushing itself through. You know, I actually can't remember the last time I was enjoying driving an SUV this much.
Thing is, Maserati's always been good at making fast cars. The MC20 and countless others are proof of that. But a decent luxury SUV is about so much more than sheer power and performance.
Now, one of the things that we really liked about the MC20 supercar was that everything on it, from the Dallara produced carbon tub to the Nettuno engine, was absolutely brand new. We hadn't seen it before on any Maserati or any other car. Understandably, with this, which is a big selling, or hopefully big selling SUV, they can't quite do the same, but there are still some interesting details. For example, the platform, it's the Giorgio platform, and it's the same platform that's used on the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, for example, but it's a little bit longer. So you'll see that this car is like an elongated version of that. And you can see shades of the Stelvio in the silhouette of this car. But check this out, the grille, that's noticeably different. It's a nice low grille with the vertical slats, very Maserati, big trident in the middle, looks really good. The headlights, you probably think they look a little bit like those of a Ford Puma, but that's no bad thing, that's a good looking car. And then coming around the side, the 21-inch alloy wheels on this Trofeo model. You'll learn about how those affect the ride in a little bit. Coming down the side, again, the Trofeo badging, the little grills there, the carbon fiber detailing on the Trofeo, and at the back, there's the 3200 GT sort of boomerang headlights, a little bit inspired from that, and that looks quite good. I mean, overall, as SUVs go, I think this is a nice looking car. What do you think?
Inside, the Grecale goes some way to demonstrating why it's £20,000 more than the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, not least due to the extra space on offer. Maserati's old infotainment system is thankfully gone, and instead there's an Android-based system that's sharp and responsive. Below the main 12.3-inch touchscreen sits an Audi-style secondary control panel. Measuring 8.8 inches across, it slopes out from the dashboard and allows control of the aircon, seat heating and other secondary systems.
A few other things to note. Digital dashboard display, we've seen it on pretty much every other luxury car, including the MC20, and it's made its way onto this. It's not a bad system, could be a little bit better perhaps, but it is clear and it's got enough functionality to be getting by with, so that's pretty good. The Sonos Faber sound system, you'll see it with all the silver covers over the speakers. That's quite clever because in some places it points the speakers at the shell of the car, so it uses the shell to kind of resonate the sound through, and almost like a giant speaker, which is a nice little touch. The gear shift paddles, sounds like a small thing, but it makes such a big difference, especially on performance cars, because it's a really big touch point. And then these lovely paddles with a nice action, nice metal as well, just really nice things to use. So big fan of those. Also, you'll remember on Maseratis, you'd often get an analog clock up here. Now it's like a larger version of a smartwatch. So you still got a clock, but it's a digital screen and you can choose what kind of clock face you want. So you can have classic, sport, design, various ones there. But you can also turn it into a G meter or something that tells you how your pedals are pressed. It's quite a nice touch. It's maybe a little bit gimmicky, but actually I like it because we haven't seen that really on any other car. So that works pretty well. Overall, I think the cabin doesn't feel quite as cleanly designed or as solid, especially around the buttons here, as for example a Porsche Macan, but it is a nice place to spend time in and it does feel quite special. It's not just like a reskinned version of an Alfa Romeo Stelvio. So yeah, actually, I'm a fan.
Speaking of which, the Grecale isn't just available in top-spec Trofeo trim. There's also entry-level GT and Modena flavours, both using the same 2-litre mild hybrid as the Levante. In base spec, the Grecale puts out 296 brake horsepower and makes do with an open rear diff, while Modena versions get 325 brake horsepower, a mechanical rear diff, and the same wider rear track as the Trofeo. However, the thing about performance SUVs is that while they need to be fast on paper for people to want them and covet them, in reality, comfort is still way more important. And in that respect, it's a bit mixed.
Now this car has the air springs and the active dampers fitted, which is good, but it's also got the 21-inch alloy wheels as we mentioned before, and while they look great, what they do for the ride quality isn't so great. And a number of luxury cars now, they can work around having big wheels and they're still comfortable, but this, no, it feels like it's struggling more, because sharp cracks or bumps in the road, they're not isolated from the cabin as well as you'd want from a luxury SUV. I know it's a performance SUV, but still, it needs to do the luxury bit really well too. And compared to rivals, yeah, it's just not as well smoothed off when you go over cracks and bumps in the road. You just feel it that bit more. I'm not saying it's uncomfortable or unbearable, it's nowhere near that, but when you're spending this much money on a luxury SUV, and obviously SUVs are supposed to be comfortable just by their very nature, I think you would be expecting a bit better ride comfort than what this car offers. I will caveat that by saying that this is, strictly speaking, a pre-production model, so they could still tune the dampers a little bit better for rough roads, but at the moment it's not up there with the best rivals for ride quality and delivering that balance between ride quality and handling and performance.
It's probably quite clear by now that this is not a perfect car. A luxury SUV may be seen as the golden goose, but you need to get everything right across the board. And from what we've seen so far, the comfort levels on the Grecale need to improve. Nobody spends over £90,000 on an SUV to endure an overly firm ride.
Thing is though, if you're going to splash out on a big, fast luxury SUV, especially one that's in a colour as bright as this, then you want something that's a bit different, a bit unique, a bit special. Something that you don't see every day that's a conversation starter. This car does all of that. The only thing is how much you care about that last layer of absolute comfort, because that's my main issue. Just that.